Sámi Shamanism. Published by Wikipedia. Traditional Sámi spiritual practices and beliefs are based on a type of animism, polytheism, and what anthropologists may consider shamanism. The religious traditions can vary considerably from region to region within Sápmi. Traditional Sámi religion is generally considered to be animism. The Sámi belief that all significant natural objects possess a soul, and from a polytheistic perspective, traditional Sámi beliefs include a multitude of spirits. Sámi traditional beliefs and practices commonly emphasizes veneration of the dead and of animal spirits. The relationship with the local animals that sustain the people, such as the reindeer, are very important to the kin group. Deities and animal spirits. Aside from bear worship, there are other animal spirits such as the haldi who watch over nature. Some Sámi people have a thunder god called Horagals. Rana Niita is the daughter of the green, fertile earth. The symbol of the world tree or pillar, which reaches up to the North Star and is similar to that found in Finnish mythology, may also be present. Liibolmai, the forest spirit of some of the Sámi people, is traditionally associated with forest animals, which are regarded as his herds, and he is said to grant either good or bad luck in hunting. His favor was so important that, according to one author, believers said prayers and made offerings to him every morning and every evening. Seedus. In the landscape throughout northern Scandinavia, one can find seedus, places that have unusual landforms different from the surrounding countryside, and that can be considered to have spiritual significance. Each family or clan has its local spirits, to whom they make offerings for protection and good fortune. The Storjunkar are described sometimes as stones, having some likeness to a man or an animal, that were set up on a mountain top, or in a cave, or near rivers and lakes. Honor was done to them by spreading fresh twigs under them in winter, and in summer leaves or grass. The Storjunkar had power over all animals, fish, and birds, and gave luck to those that hunted or fished for them. Reindeer were offered up to them, and every clan and family had its own hill of sacrifice. Noidi. A Noidi is a mediator between the human world and Savo, the underworld, on the behalf of the community, usually using a Sámi drum and a domestic flute called a fadno in ceremonies. Ancestors. One of the most irreconcilable elements of the Sámi's worldview from the missionaries' perspective was the notion that the living and the departed were regarded as two halves of the same family. The Sámi regarded the concept as fundamental, while Protestant Christian missionaries absolutely discounted any possibility of the dead having anything to do with the living. Since this belief was not just a religion, but a living dialogue with their ancestors, their society was concomitantly impoverished. List of deities. The Sámi religion differs somewhat between regions and tribes. Although the deities are similar, their names vary between regions. The deities also overlap. In one region, one deity can appear as several separate deities, and in another region, several deities can be united into just a few. Because of these variations, the deities can be somewhat confused with each other. The main deities of the Sámi were as follows. Akka, a group of fertility goddesses, including Madaraka, Saraka, Juksaka and Uksaka. Biv, goddess of the sun, mother of human beings. However, in some areas the sun is male. Bigagalis, husband of the sun goddess, father of human beings. Bigolmai, man of the winds, god of the winds. Biagenijta, goddess of healing and medicine, daughter of the sun, Biv. Horagals, god of thunder. His name may mean Thorman. He is also called grandfather, Bajanolmai, Dirpmis, Pion and Tordum. Jobmi Akka, the goddess of the dead, and mistress of the underworld and the realm of the dead. Ipimil, god, adopted as a native name for the Christian god, also used for Radian Atjay. Liibolmai, god of the hunt and of adult men. Madar Atjay, husband of Madaraka and father of the tribe. While his wife gives newborns their bodies, he gives them their souls. Mano, Mana, or Ask, god of the moon. Mugpianalmaj, the god of evil, influenced by the Christian Satan. Radian Atjay, creator and high god, the creator of the world and the head divinity. In Sámi religion, he is passive or sleeping and is not often included in religious practice. He created the souls of human beings with his spouse. He was also called Waraldan Olmai. Radiaka, wife of the high god Radian Atjay. She created the souls of human beings with her spouse. Rana Neita, spring goddess, the daughter of Radian Atjay and Radiaka. Rana, meaning green, or by extension, fertile, was a popular name for Sámi girls. Radian Pardni, the son of Radian Atjay and Radiaka. He acts as the proxy of his passive father, performing his tasks and carrying out his will. Ruota, god of sickness and death. He was depicted riding a horse. Stalo, feared cannibal giants of the wilderness. Jaitsi-Almaj, the man of water, god of water, lakes and fishing. Seedi. Published by Wikipedia. Seedis are Sámi cultural items, usually a rock with unusual shape. Seedis are found in nature in certain sacred places, for example at the sea or river beaches or on the mountain. The word seedi has also been used for holy rocks or wooden figures that have undergone some processing. The victory was a symbol of the divine power ruling over the natural resources that humans needed for their survival. Samis sacrifice parts of their catch at sea to get a successful hunting or fishing in the future. In southern Sámi, the name varies between Viero Girki, Viero Mower, Sol Girki and Sol Nut. Physical characteristics. Each stone is different from the others, and they might vary in form and size. They could be small rocks below a meter of highness but also high stones of more of 10 meters. They don't have specific forms but sometimes they remind anthropomorphic features or have other peculiar forms. Their natural form makes it difficult to recognize them in the Sámi landscape and don't confuse them with other normal stones. In fact, most of the Seedis which are still known these days are remembered because of written or oral traditions, but other Seedis sites have been probably forgotten. Rituals and sacrifices. One of the most relevant features of the Sámi sacred landscape, the Seedis, consist of wood poles or, more commonly, of stones not modified by humans. Many sacrifices occurred at Seedis sites, and these were always connected to the lives of the Sámi population. Sámi used to do offers and sacrifices to ask help to the Seedis, for example during sickness, but also for assistance in everyday's tasks and duties. Fishermen offered fish before going fishing and others offered meat before going hunting. The relationship between these stones and the population was considered to be reciprocal. In fact, sacrifices were usually promised before trips and hunt or fishing expeditions. If the trips were a success, the Sámi respected their promises. If not, they could destroy the Seedi which didn't help them. Meat, fish and bones were the most common offers, but there were also other types which included coins, metal objects, jewelry, cheese, and glass. Gallery. No-ID. Published by Wikipedia. A no-ID is a shaman of the Sámi people in the Nordic countries, playing a role in Sámi religious practices. Most no-ID practices died out during the 17th century, most likely because they resisted Christianization of the Sámi people and the king's authority. Their actions were referred to in courts as magic or sorcery. Several Sámi shamanistic beliefs and practices are similar to those of some Siberian cultures. Description and history. No-Idis, often referred to as the Sámi shamans, are the traditional healers and protectors of the Sámi people. No-Idis are considered to have the role of mediator between humans and the spirits. To undertake this mediation, the no-ID are believed to be able to communicate with the spirit world, and to ask what sacrifice needed to be made by a person so that he might return to good health and be successful in the hunt for food. Sacrifices designed by the no-ID are understood to re-establish a kind of balance between the mortal and immortal worlds. Using a traditional drum, which is the most important symbol and tool of the Sámi no-ID, they invoke assistance from benevolent spirits and conducted out-of-body travel via the free soul, with the help of other Siddha members. The Sámi distinguish between the free soul versus the more mundane body soul. The body soul is unable to traverse the divide separating the spiritual netherworld from the more mundane, corporeal, real world. A no-ID can engage in any kind of affair that demands wisdom. It is said they take payments for their services. The activities include healing people, helping children, making decisions and protecting reindeer, which represents the most important source of food and are also used as tribute payment. The sources from which we learn about no ID are court protocols, tales, excavated tools such as belts, and missionary reports. That no-itis were punished and in some cases sentenced to death for their sorcery should perhaps rather be interpreted as an attempt to obliterate opposition to the crown. Prior to 1858, when the Conventicle Act was abolished, there was by law no freedom of religion, as the Lutheran Swedish Church was the only allowed religion for Swedish citizens. Swedish priests supported conviction of no-itis for sorcery, and in 1693, Lars Nielsen was executed for this charge. It has traditionally often been claimed that only men could become no-ID and use the drum, but both Rekuo Maha of Arvidsjaur as well as Anna Greta Matsdotter of Vapesen, known as Silbo Gammo or Gammal Silba, were both noted to have done so. Remnants in music tradition. In the Sámi shamanistic form of worship, drumming and traditional chanting is of singular importance. Some of yoiks are sung on shamanistic rites. This memory is conserved also in a folklore text. Recently, yoiks have been sung in two different styles, one of which is sung only by young people. The other yoik may be identified with the mumbling yoik, resembling chants or magic spells. Several surprising characteristics of yoiks can be explained by comparing the music ideals, as observed in yoiks and contrasted to music ideals of other cultures. In some instances, yoiks mimic natural sounds. This can be contrasted to other goals, namely overtone singing and bel canto, both of which exploit human speech organs to achieve superhuman sounds. Overtone singing and the imitation of sounds in shamanism are present in many other cultures as well. Sound imitation may serve other purposes such as games and other entertainment, as well as important practical purposes such as luring animals during hunts. Madaraka. Published by Wikipedia. Madaraka is a mother goddess in Sámi Shamanism. She lives in the ground under the Goati. She is connected to childbirth and has been said to give child its body and make female humans and animals fertile. It's been recorded drinks were offered to her so she be merciful towards a pregnant woman. In Western Sápmi, she was thought to have 3 daughters, Sarika, Juoksaka and Uksika. In Eastern Sápmi, such as in the area of modern-day Finland, these daughters were not known. This has led some researchers to conclude the daughters were born out of later Scandinavian influence. According to Chris Fried-Ganander in 1789, Madaraka received a child from Radian Atjay and gave it life, handing it over to Sarika, who then put it in the woman's womb. Her, as well as her daughters, are primarily known as helpers of women. After the arrival of Christianity, she came to be associated with Virgin Mary. On some Sámi drums, she is given the husband Madaratjay, but he has a much smaller role and has thus been assumed to be a later addition. The Sámi of Kola Peninsula had the word Mandira key, due to which Karle Krone thought that Madaraka was originally a female ancestor buried in the ground and worshipped by later generations, primarily women. Sarika. Published by Wikipedia. Sarika is a goddess in Sámi shamanism connected to childbirth. She is one of the daughters of Madaraka along with Juoksaka and Uksika. After Radian Atjay hands a fetus to Madaraka, who gives it life, she hands it over to Sarika, who puts it in the woman's womb and gives the fetus a body. She lived in ground under the Goati with her mother and sisters. She was only known to Sámi in modern-day Norway and Sweden, not in Finland or Russia. She is the most important and worshipped out of the Sámi goddesses of childbirth. She protected and eased with the birthing pains of not only humans but reindeer as well. She also felt the same pains as a woman giving birth, and she was very important for Sámi women. Before labor, the woman drank Sarika's booze, and after, she ate Sarika's porridge. She was also worshipped during menstruation, when women had to take off their collars and belts for Sarika. A menstruating woman was not allowed to step over a man's foot or gun, nor go too close to the coastline where fishermen threw their fish from the boats, nor milk cows. After period, a woman baked a pastry only the women were allowed to eat. Her name has been connected to the word sarit. Wood was split into 2 for Sarika in order to make childbirth easier. These pieces of wood were considered so scared one was not permitted to even touch them. Spring water was also poured on the ground for Sarika. Animals were also sacrificed. When a woman felt she was going to be a mother, she got a dog and kept it until it was time for labor. Then she'd bury the dog alive so the gods would help her. After a successful birth, a reindeer or other domesticated animal was sacrificed. Only female animals were sacrificed with the exception of roosters. Some pregnant women offered Sarika alcohol, meat and cheese, usually in the fireplace. She lived below the hearth. Christianity had an effect on the cult of Sarika. There were baptisms where a child was given the name of an ancestor and devoted to Sarika. Before or after going to church, people held events where they consumed the flesh and blood of Sarika, and this was also held for other gods so they wouldn't be angry with the Sámi when they were forced to go for the Eucharist by priests. Later, Virgin Mary replaced Sarika. The Sarika cult developed so she was worshipped not only by women but men as well. The modern Sámi women's organization, the Sarika, formed in 1988, is named in honor of her. Juaksaka. Published by Wikipedia. Juaksaka is a goddess in Sámi Shamanism related to childbirth. She is one of the daughters of Madaraka along with Sarika and Uksaka and lived in the ground under the Goati, at the back according to some sources. She was only known to Sámi in Scandinavian parts of Sápmi but not, for example, in the area of modern-day Finland. Juaksaka helped with the development and birth of a child, and if she was brought offerings enough, she could change the child's sex from female to male in the womb. As sons were more wanted than daughters, she was given plentiful offerings. According to Chris Fried-Ganander in 1789, she also helped women during menstruation and protected children from shots and falls. Ganander gave many of Juaksaka's features to Uksaka and vice versa and claimed that she was always at odds with Liibolmai. After a woman had given birth, she ate the porridge of Sarika. In the case of a son, a small bow and arrow were put in the porridge in 3 pieces total, and if the mother hit any of the pieces with her spoon while eating, the future of the child was attempted to be predicted from this. The little bow and arrow was put next to the cradle of the son so he'd grow to be a skilled archer, and he was supposed to keep the items in the future as well. In Salton, Jukum Aka refers to either Juaksaka or Uksaka. Some researchers have considered the two the same being, but this is not the case according to Uno Holmberg. He thought Juaksaka was born out of foreign influence since Sámi women were not even permitted to touch a hunting bow, a man's tool, but Juaksaka is a goddess depicted holding a bow. Uksaka. Published by Wikipedia. Uksaka is a goddess in Sámi Shamanism related to childbirth. She is one of the daughters of Madaraka along with Sarika and Juaksaka and lived in the ground under the Goati, below the door specifically. She was only known to Sámi in Scandinavian parts of Sápmi but not, for example, in the area of modern-day Finland. Uksaka protected people when they stepped in or out of the Goati. In childbirth, her role was to receive the child into the world. She also protected the child later, especially when learning to walk so the child wouldn't hurt themselves. She also made sure a child wouldn't get lost from the Goati. She was offered drinks poured to her home, under the Goati's door. Chris Fried-Ganander gave many of Juaksaka's features to Uksaka and vice versa, claiming that Uksaka could turn daughters into sons in the womb, typically Juaksaka's role. Uksaka would then also help women during menstruation, a role Ganander gives to Juaksaka. In Salton, Jukum Aka refers to either Juaksaka or Uksaka. Some researchers have considered the two the same being, but this is not the case according to Uno Holmberg. Holmberg compared Uksaka to the Swedish Dora, door-carrying, Dor's old woman. Due to Christian influence, Uksaka was later equated with Virgin Mary. Biv. Published by Wikipedia. Biv is the Sámi sun deity. The name of the deity is the same as the name of the sun. The Sámi sun deity is usually depicted as female, but sometimes as male. In Sápmi, north of the polar circle, where the sun does not even reach the horizon in winter, the sun was widely venerated and played a major role in the cultic coherence. Biv is goddess of the sun, spring, and sanity, associated with the fertility of plants and animals, particularly reindeer. She made the plants grow so that the reindeer flourished and reproduced, and brought wealth and prosperity to the humans. On the winter solstice, a white female animal or animals, usually reindeer, were sacrificed in honor of Beav, to ensure that she returned to the world and put an end to the long winter season. The sacrificed animal's meat would be threaded onto sticks, which were then bent into rings and tied with bright ribbons. This is called the Festival of Beav. At the time of the year when the sun was returning, butter was smeared on the doorposts, as a sacrifice to Beav, so that she could gain strength during her convalescence and go higher and higher in the sky. At the summer solstice, people made sun rings out of leaves and pinned them up in her honor. On these occasions, they also ate butter as a sacral meal. At the time of the year when Beav returned, prayers were made for the people who were mentally ill. The Sámi believed that madness were provoked by the lack of sunshine and light during the long, dark winter. In Sámi myth, she travels with her daughter, Beav Niida, through the sky in an enclosure covered by reindeer bones or antlers, bringing spring with them. Beajenichta. Published by Wikipedia. Beajenichta was a deity of the Sámi mythology. She is the goddess of medicine and healing. She is the daughter of the sun goddess Beav. She is particularly helpful towards illnesses caused by her mother, the sun. Begolmai. Published by Wikipedia. Begolmai or Begagalis is the god of wind in Sámi Shamanism. He is generally portrayed with two shovels in his hands, which he used to shuffle the winds into and out of his cave. According to Johann Randolph in the Nairoy manuscript, he had a shovel in his right hand to put wind back into his caves after it had blown enough, and a club in his left hand to chase the wind back out to blow. He was asked to ease the blowing of harmful wind to reindeer, as well as calm down storms when in the waters. Henrik Forbes called him a summer god who ruled over air and wind, water and sea. On sun-centered Sámi drums, Begolmai resides on one of the sun's rays. Begolmai was among the most important Sámi gods. He could influence the movements of reindeer because reindeer tend to travel into headwind to minimize the number of mosquitoes around. In Inari, Finland, there are the Pieg Oivads fells where people used to sacrifice horns to Begolmai. Other things which were sacrificed were animals, small boats or even wooden shovels. In Utsjoki, he was also known as Ilmaris, loaned from Finnish Ilmarinen or demonstrating a shared origin for the two figures. Some researchers, such as Axel Ulrich, have connected Begolmai to Norse Njord. Ulrich argued that Begolmai's shovel would actually be a paddle, and that Begolmai would have originally been a god of sailors. Sámi drums display a trinity of Horagals, Varaldan Olmai and Begagales. Raphael Karsten called Begolmai the unpredictable deity of the summer winds and storms, and Begkagalis his winter counterpart. Horagals. Published by Wikipedia. In Sámi Shamanism, Western Sámi Horagals, often equated with Eastern Sámi Tirms, Bajan, and Ijk or Ig, is the thunder god. He is depicted as a wooden figure with a nail in the head and with a hammer, or occasionally on shaman drums, two hammers. Names. The name Horagals does not occur in older dictionaries of Sámi languages, for instance in the mid-19th century. He is often equated with Tirms. In 1673 Johannes Scheffer, who did not use the name Horagals, wrote that when Ijk thundered, he was called Tirms. There is considerable regional variation in the names. Horagals is characteristically Southern Sámi and Tirms and variants being commonly used among Northern Sámi, and the rainbow is referred to by a variety of names referring to thunder. Early scholars noted the similarities between Horagals and the Norse thunder god Thor and that some Sámi called him Thorin or simply Thor, and were unsure which had influenced which. But the name Horagals is now interpreted as a loanword from the Old Norse or Karl, the old man Thor, Thor, the elder, or Thor fellow, Thor Karl, or Swedish Torsmannen, the Thunder Man. This is not certain as a Southern Sámi variation of the name is Hovrangalis, from Hov, make noise. Among Eastern Sámi groups, the thunder god is called Tirms or Tirmes, in Northern Sámi Dirpmus. The word could be a loanword from a pre-Finno-Ugric substrate language or related to the Henty thunder god Torum. Bajan is the commonly known name of the thunder god in northern Sami, from the word paddi, above. According to Zacharias Plantin, Pion is an alias of Dorigas, which in turn is a distorted version of Horigals. This name might have been loaned into one of the names of the Finnish god Ukko, Pahainen. Ig, old man, is the primary name of the thunder god in Inari Sami. According to tradition and archaeological evidence, he had a local cult on the Ig Swalui island in Inari, where reindeer antlers and metal objects were still sacrificed in the late 19th century. Characteristics and functions. Idols of Horigals are made of wood and have a nail or spike and a piece of flint in the head. He has a hammer called Wechera, Ijeke Wechera, or Ijeke Visera, grandfather's hammer. The Lul Sami people build a stage for the idol of Horigals holding a hammer, while one description states that Aj's tree had to be out of birch and be set upside down. Horigals and Tirms are described as the god of the sky, thunder and lightning, the rainbow, weather, oceans and lakes. He punishes hurtful demons, or evil spirits, who frequent the rocks and mountains. Horigals destroys them with his lightning, shoots them with his bow, or dashes their brains out with his hammer. The rainbow is his bow, Ijeke Dodge. For Eastern Sami groups, the sky god Radian Atje seems to have fused into Tirms, as Tirms is also seen as the ruler over human life, health, and well-being. According to the mid-18th century Cérémonies et Coutumes Religieuses de tous les peuples du monde, Thirms or Thorin, is the first in a trinity, of whom the other members are Storjunkar and Bave or Jumala. In Kildan Sami, the rainbow is Tirmes Jukes, Tirms's bow, and the lightning is Tirmes Tool, Tirms's fire. A bow and fiery arrows could then be the thunder god's original weapon. The thunder god was also capable of hurting the Sami in their sacred sites. A Noidi could connect with him through drumming and yoiking to release reindeer from a spell or hurt enemies. Among Eastern Sami groups, the thunder god has a closer connection to the creation and destruction of the world. Skolt Sami tradition states that thunder teach the world's first humans how to build a goati. Ter Sami myth states that he is the highest sky god capable of destroying the world, and in general Eastern Sami eschatology, he is a heavenly hunter hunting a heavenly reindeer on the sky, and when he shoots it with a fiery arrow, the world will fall into chaos and set on fire, the sky collapsing. According to Jacob Fellman, Horigal's consort is called Ravna, and the red berries of the rowan tree are sacred to her. The name Ravna resembles North Germanic names for the tree, such as Old Norse Rainer, and according to the Prose Edda book Skaldskaparmal, the rowan is called the salvation of Thor, because Thor once saved himself by clinging to it. It has therefore been theorized that the Norse goddess Sif, Thor's wife, was once conceived of in the form of a rowan to which Thor clung. Uno Harva raised doubts on the existence of Ravna, as she is not mentioned in other writing but Fellman's, and Fellman refers to the thunder god with the Finnish name Ukko in this instance. Harva suggested Fellman might have been simply trying to find a Sami equivalent for Rani, as the Skolts had never heard of the thunder god having a wife. Horigals depicted on Sámi shaman drums. On Sámi shaman drums, Horigals is occasionally depicted with a sledgehammer in one hand and a cross hammer in the other, or symbolized by two crossed hammers. He made thunder and lightning with one hammer and withdrew them with the other to prevent harm to the Sami or their animals. Jabmidaka. Published by Wikipedia. Jabmidaka is the female ruler of the underworld Jabmayadibmu in Sámi Shamanism. Jabmayadibmu wasn't a bad place, but the dead missed their relatives, so Jabmidaka sometimes allowed them to cause diseases on the living. If the dead managed to catch the soul of a living person and drag it down to Jabmayadibmu, the person would fall into a coma or a fatal illness. Jabmidaka could allow the soul to return if sufficient offerings were made. Black animals were sacrificed to her by burying them alive, especially cats and roosters, the latter which were buried under a pile of stones. A female ruler of the underworld likely wasn't the original concept in Proto-Uralic religion, but this development happened in order to portray how everything was opposite in the underworld. The same happened relating to the Finnish beliefs of the female ruler of the underworld, Luhi. Due to Christian influence, Jabmayadibmu came to be seen akin to purgatory, and Jabmidaka came to be associated with Virgin Mary. Karle Krone compared Jabmidaka to hell from Norse mythology. Ipimil. Published by Wikipedia. Ipimil means God in the Northern Sami language. Ipimil has been used by Sami Christians for God, the creator and ruler of the universe. According to the Christian doctrine of Trinity, Ipimil consists of Oshsi, Bardni and Basi Voiga. Ipimil can also be used as the Northern Sami translation of God from other religions, such as Allah and Adonai. Svenska Kyrkan has a prayer in Northern Sami with Ipimil. The Northern Sami response to greetings such as Biore Biv and Biore Iket is Ipimil at, which can be literally translated to God grant. Traditional Sami religion. In traditional Sami religion, nature and people are one, as opposed to the Christian belief of humans being the stewards of nature. The father of people is Biv and the mother of people is Ina. This is referenced in the works of the most well-known Sami poet Elohas, named Biv, Akazan and Enan, Ialima Idni. The world has three layers: the realm of the gods, the realm of the living, and the realm of the dead. Ipimilid Ibmu is overseen by the highest god, the god of thunder, known by the names Horigalis, Adya and Dirpmes. Ilvakade Ibmu is overseen by Biv. Jabmid Ibmu is overseen by the mother of life, Madaraka. Madaraka has three daughters, Uxika, Juoxaka and Sarika. Uxika is the goddess of the home. She guards the entrance of the Goati and the nests of animals. Sarika is the goddess of childbirth, and Juoxaka the goddess of hunting. Sarika guards women and Juxika men throughout their lives. Other gods include Burj Jumi Ip Malat like Biga Almay, Kachaumai, Liibilmai and Manu. Liibolmai. Published by Wikipedia. Liibolmai, Libolmai, Lijabibilmij, or Libolmai is the god of the hunt in Sami mythology. He is the ruler of the wild animals in the forests, and the hunters made sacrifices in his honor to obtain good hunting fortune. As the god of hunting, he is the god of good luck. He lives in the trees of alder and gives good luck to hunters against bears, and he appears to humans in the form of a bear. In honor of Libolmai, at bears' feasts the hunters' faces were sprinkled with a brownish-red mixture of ground-up alder bark and water. Mano, mythology. Published by Wikipedia. In Sami mythology, Mano, Mano, Ask, or Mana is a personification of the moon as a female deity. The Sami worldview is animistic in nature, with shamanistic features, and in that worldview their divinities occupied important positions. Every force of nature is associated with a god or goddess, and sources of livelihood are believed to be safeguarded by beings in the spiritual world that can be persuaded to be more favorable. Like other nature deities, the goddess Mano is seen as unpredictable and dangerous. She is worshipped around the time of the new moon, especially around the winter solstice, and during that time it is taboo to make any kind of noise. Christian missionaries and priests normally did not understand these pagan concepts but regarded them as satanic. The Sami were forcibly converted to Christianity and shamanistic practices forbidden. Sami spirituality brings unearthliness, the spiritual world, to the Sami. The shaman is the intermediary between this world and the spiritual. Some Sami shamans have no ID drums, and at least one such drum with a Mano moon symbol has been discovered. Radian Atjay. Published by Wikipedia. Radian Atjay, Jubmul, Mailman Olmai, Varaldan Olmai or Waraldan Olmai is the superior or celestial deity of the Sami. He is also called Jubmul or Ibimil, a parallel to the Finnish Jumala. The superior deity is the ruler of the cosmos. In his honor, the Sami erect a sacrificial pole every autumn, symbolizing the world pillar, which is considered as a connection the world to the firmament. The pillar reached from the center of the earth to the fixed point on the firmament, the pole star. The superior deity is also the giver of life, and is considered the god of fertility. For Eastern Sami groups, Radian Atjay seems to have fused into the thunder god Tirms, as Tirms is also seen as the ruler over human life, health, and well-being. Name. The terms Jubmul and Ibimel are suspected to be loans from Finnish. It mostly refers to the sky god Radian, but in one source also refers to the thunder god. Radian comes from radit, to rule, in present participle singular genitive. Versions such as Varaldan Rad and Mailmen Radian mean, the ruler of the world. Radian Atjay means, ruler father. According to Knud Lehm, some Sami considered Radian to be the same as Korv Radian, horn ruler. Jens Kildal considered Mailmen Radian and Korv Radian to be separate entities. In Norway, the one who hold up the sky was called the fertility god Varaldan Olmai, man of the world. It is a cognate with an epithet for the Germanic god Freyr. Uno Holmberg considered Varaldan Olmai and Storjunkar to be terms for a fertility god loaned from the Scandinavians. Description: Radian Atjay is often portrayed as the main figure in a trinity, which besides him, consists of the Radiaka or Radian Akka and their son Radian Pardni. There are critics who claim that this trinity is a consequence of the meeting with the Christian religion, and that it is a match to God the Father, Jesus the Son and the Holy Spirit. If this is the case, the Sami have replaced the Holy Spirit with a wife. In some versions, the heavenly family also include the daughter Rana-Neita. As superior deity, Radian Atjay is more of an intellectual superior, as his son, Radian Pardni, performs the practical things. Radian Atjay's role is to give a child its spirit and take the souls of the righteous to him in Radian Amo, home of the ruler. According to Holmberg, the worship of Maximin Radian clearly had its origins in pre-Christian times. A male reindeer or other animal was sacrificed to him so he wouldn't let the world collapse. On the sacrificial altar was a forking tree symbolizing the world pillar Varaldan T Sold, which Radian Atjay used to hold up the world. Johann Randolph compared Varaldan Olmai to Saturn and said the Sami prayed him for good harvest so they could buy grain and products made of it, for fertile seas in order to get plenty of fish, for fertile reindeer, and for plenty of lichen for the reindeer to eat so they could be milked for butter and cheese. Radiaka. Published by Wikipedia. Radiaka or Radian Akka is a goddess in the Sami mythology. She is the wife of the Sami high god Radian Atjay, and the mother of Rana-Neita and Radinjit. She and her husband are described as the two divinities who created the world and the human soul together. Rana-Neita. Published by Wikipedia. Rana-Neita and Rana-Neita are variant forms of the Ume Sami name of a goddess in Sami mythology. In northern Sami she is called Rana-Neita and Rana-Nage. Rana-Neita is the goddess for spring and fertility. The literal translation of the name Rana is, the green, or, the green, fertile fields. The name Rana-Neita can freely be translated as, the daughter of earth. According to Sami mythology, it was she who made the southern slopes of the mountains green, so that the hungry reindeer would have enough food. Sala-Neita and Rana-Neita. The Finnish linguist Otto Donner described in his translation of Sami poems into German and Finnish in 1876 how Sala-Neita, daughter of the sun, Rana-Neita and Savo-Neita, daughter of the underworld, often were mentioned together in Sami poetry, and sometimes were confused with each other by outsiders without personal knowledge of Sami mythology. Die Sonnentochter wird auch zuweilen Savo-Neita die Tochter der Underwelt, oder Rana, Ruona-Neita die Grunli. However, older sources from the daughter of the sun is also mentioned together with Savo-Neita, the daughter of the underworld, or Rana, Ruona-Neita, the green, that is, the daughter of spring. However, older sources from 1700 clearly shows that they are three different goddesses. Sala-Neita had the power to end the snow and the cold, while Rana-Neita made it possible for trees and herbs to grow and flourish anew every year. Rana-Neita thus represents the recreation of the spring. The Samis considered the sun as a divine being, but the effects and the heat, which they are sensing from the sun, they say is the daughter of the sun, which they call Salanide, and they consider her to have the power to make an end to snow and coldness. Sala-Neita and Rana-Neita were two different goddesses, which, together with Servajedni, are worshipped and adored as goddesses, and when the Sami need them, they are sacrificing to them, so that they shall be mild and give grass to the reindeer of the Sami people. and so that the Sámi people should not suffer from hunger, but enjoy milk and cheese from the animals. To the summer belongs that the snow must go away, and thereafter that grass and leaves grows. Both are necessary for the Sámi people for the sake of their animals, especially in such a polar climate, and in the mountains, where snow and cold rules so much longer, and in some years even more and longer than in others. And as such they could see and sense how the sun works so that the snow disappear. But they could not understand how leaves and grass blossoms. They realized that they then had to deal with the power of radiance minus, that is the good God, who rules above everything, and that from their leaves and grass came. But the elimination of the snow they credit the warmth from the sun. Rana Municipality, Norway. Some also consider her name as the origin of the name of Rana Municipality in Norway. Radian Pardni. Published by Wikipedia. Radian Pardni or Radinjit is a Sámi god, the son of Radian Atjay and Radiaka in Sámi mythology. He is an active god with the task to perform the orders of his passive father. Ruota. Published by Wikipedia. Ruota is the god and the personification of sickness and death in Sámi mythology. He is the ruler of the land of the dead, Rotemo. Contrary to Sámi practice, he traveled on horseback. The horse is among the Sámi a feared and detested animal, probably because it was the preferred form of transportation of the Norsemen. People who did not live their lives according to the natural orders came to Rotemo, deep underground. There they also receive a new body, but they can never leave Rotemo again. Stallo. Published by Wikipedia. In the folklore of the Sámi, a stallo is a large, human-like creature who likes to eat people and who therefore is usually in some form of hostilities with a human. Stallos are clumsy and unintelligent, and thus humans often gain the upper hand over them. The Vindelfjällen Nature Reserve contains the remains of ancient, large building foundations, considered by the Sámi to be the remains of stallo dwellings. There is also a huge stone placed on some small pebbles on top near Lake Gingaljare named Stallastinen, which literally means the stallo stone. Legend dictates that a stallo would have placed a stone here to prove his strength. Stallo sites. On account of the identification of relics of ancient buildings with the stallo in the southern part of the Sámi area of Sweden, archaeologists have come to refer to such relics as stallo sites, generally, following the lead of Ernst Menker's 1960 study Fangstgropar och Stallatomter. Such buildings are actually round or oval, with a diameter of 4 to 6 meters, arranged linearly in groups of 2 to 8. Around 60 such sites are known, distributed along what is now the Norway-Sweden border, from Frostviken in Jämtland County to the south, to Devdevopmi in Troms to the north. They are found above the treeline, at heights between 550 and 850 meters. They seem to have been in most extensive use around 800–1050 CE, that is, during the Viking Age. Scholars agree that these were temporary dwellings, probably for use in the warmer months, and that they reflect a change in the economic habits of their users, almost certainly associated with hunting or herding reindeer. Nevertheless, there is extensive debate over whether the inhabitants were ethnically Norse or Sámi, where their permanent habitations were located, and their purpose. As of 2014, debate was ongoing, but opinion at that time favored the idea that the stallo sites were used by Sámi people, partly because the layout of the buildings corresponds to later Sámi dwellings. In folklore, stallo appears in Sámi folktales, such as how the stallos were tricked, stallo och kauras, and the tale of Enjunji Pagas. Andrew Lang's Fairy Books. Published by mythfolklore.net. How the Stallos were tricked. Mother, I have seen such a wonderful man, said a little boy one day, as he entered a hut in Lapland, bearing in his arms the bundle of sticks he had been sent out to gather. Have you, my son? And what was he like? Asked the mother, as she took off the child's sheepskin coat and shook it on the doorstep. Well, I was tired of stooping for the sticks, and was leaning against a tree to rest, when I heard a noise of shish, shish, among the dead leaves. I thought perhaps it was a wolf, so I stood very still. But soon there came past a tall man, twice as tall as father, with a long red beard and a red tunic fastened with a silver girdle, from which hung a silver-handled knife. Behind him followed a great dog, which looked stronger than any wolf, or even a bear. But why are you so pale, mother? It was the Stalo, replied she, her voice trembling. Stalo the man-eater. You did well to hide, or you might never had come back. But, remember that, though he is so tall and strong, he is very stupid, and many a Lapp has escaped from his clutches by playing him some clever trick. Not long after the mother and son had held this talk, it began to be whispered in the forest that the children of an old man called Pato had vanished one by one, no one knew whither. The unhappy father searched the country for miles round without being able to find as much as a shoe or a handkerchief, to show him where they had passed, but at length the little boy came with news that he had seen the Stalo hiding behind a well, near which the children used to play. The boy had waited behind a clump of bushes to see what would happen, and by he noticed that the Stalo had laid a cunning trap in the path to the well, and that anybody who fell over it would roll into the water and drown there. And, as he watched, Pato's youngest daughter ran gaily down the path, till her foot caught in the strings that were stretched across the steepest place. She slipped and fell, and in another instant had rolled into the water within reach of the Stalo. As soon as Pato heard this tale his heart was filled with rage, and he vowed to have his revenge. So he straightway took an old fur coat from the hook where it hung, and putting it on went out into the forest. When he reached the path that led to the well he looked hastily round to be sure that no one was watching him, then laid himself down as if he had been caught in the snare and had rolled into the well, though he took care to keep his head out of the water. Very soon he heard a shish of the leaves, and there was the Stalo pushing his way through the undergrowth to see what chance he had of a dinner. At the first glimpse of Pato's head in the well he laughed loudly, crying, "Ha, ha, this time it is the old ass. I wonder how he will taste." And drawing Pato out of the well, he flung him across his shoulders and carried him home. Then he tied a cord round him and hung him over the fire to roast, while he finished a box that he was making before the door of the hut, which he meant to hold Pato's flesh when it was cooked. In a very short time the box was so nearly done that it only wanted a little more chipping out with an axe. But this part of the work was easier accomplished indoors, and he called to one of his sons who were lounging inside to bring him the tool. The young man looked everywhere, but he could not find the axe, for the very good reason that Pato had managed to pick it up and hide it in his clothes. "Stupid fellow, what is the use of you?" grumbled his father angrily, and he bade first one and then another of his sons to fetch him the tool, but they had no better success than their brother. "I must come myself, I suppose," said Stalo, putting aside the box. But, meanwhile, Pato had slipped from the hook and concealed himself behind the door, so that, as Stalo stepped in, his prisoner raised the axe, and with one blow the ogre's head was rolling on the ground. His sons were so frightened at the sight that they all ran away. And in this manner Pato avenged his dead children. But though Stalo was dead, his 3 sons were still living, and not very far off either. They had gone to their mother, who was tending some reindeer on the pastures, and told her that by some magic, they knew not what, their father's head had rolled from his body, and they had been so afraid that something dreadful would happen to them that they had come to take refuge with her. The ogress said nothing. Long ago she had found out how stupid her sons were, so she just sent them out to milk the reindeer, while she returned to the other house to bury her husband's body. Now, 3 days' journey from the hut on the pastures 2 brothers Sodno dwelt in a small cottage with their sister Lima, who tended a large herd of reindeer while they were out hunting. Of late it had been whispered from one to another that the 3 young Stalos were to be seen on the pastures, but the Sodno brothers did not disturb themselves, the danger seemed too far away. Unluckily, however, one day, when Lima was left by herself in the hut, the 3 Stalos came down and carried her and the reindeer off to their own cottage. The country was very lonely, and perhaps no one would have known in which direction she had gone had not the girl managed to tie a ball of thread to the handle of a door at the back of the cottage and let it trail behind her. Of course the ball was not long enough to go all the way, but it lay on the edge of a snowy track which led straight to the Stalo's house. When the brothers returned from their hunting they found both the hut and the sheds empty. Loudly they cried, "Lima! Lima!" But no voice answered them, and they fell to searching all about, lest perchance their sister might have dropped some clue to guide them. At length their eyes dropped on the thread which lay on the snow, and they set out to follow it. On and on they went, and when at length the thread stopped, the brothers knew that another day's journey would bring them to the Stalo's dwelling. Of course they did not dare to approach it openly, for the Stalos had the strength of giants, and besides, there were 3 of them. So the 2 Sodnos climbed into a big bushy tree which overhung a well. "Perhaps our sister may be sent to draw water here," they said to each other. But it was not till the moon had risen that the sister came, and as she let down her bucket into the well, the leaves seemed to whisper, "Lima. Lima." The girl started and looked up, but could see nothing, and in a moment the voice came again. "Be careful. Take no notice, fill your buckets, but listen carefully all the while, and we will tell you what to do so that you may escape yourself and set free the reindeer also." So Lyman bent over the well lower than before, and seemed busier than ever. "You know," said her brother, "that when a Stalo finds that anything has been dropped into his food, he will not eat a morsel, but throws it to his dogs. Now, after the pot has been hanging some time over the fire, and the broth is nearly cooked, just rake up the log of wood so that some of the ashes fly into the pot. The Stalo will soon notice this, and will call you to give all the food to the dogs, but, instead, you must bring it straight to us, as it is 3 days since we have eaten or drunk. That is all you need do for the present." Then Lima took up her buckets and carried them into the house, and did as her brothers had told her. They were so hungry that they ate the food up greedily without speaking, but when there was nothing left in the pot, the eldest one said, "Listen carefully to what I have to tell you. After the eldest Stalo has cooked and eaten a fresh supper, he will go to bed and sleep so soundly that not even a witch could wake him. You can hear him snoring a mile off, and then you must go into his room and pull off the iron mantle that covers him, and put it on the fire till it is almost red hot. When that is done, come to us and we will give you further directions." "I will obey you in everything, dear brothers," answered Lyman, and so she did. It had happened that on this very evening the Stalos had driven in some of the reindeer from the pasture, and had tied them up to the wall of the house so that they might be handy to kill for next day's dinner. The 2 Sodnos had seen what they were doing, and where the beasts were secured. So, at midnight, when all was still, they crept down from their tree and seized the reindeer by the horns which were locked together. The animals were frightened, and began to neigh and kick, as if they were fighting together, and the noise became so great that even the eldest Stalo was awakened by it, and that was a thing which had never occurred before. Raising himself in his bed, he called to his youngest brother to go out and separate the reindeer or they would certainly kill themselves. The young Stalo did as he was bid, and left the house, but no sooner was he out of the door than he was stabbed to the heart by one of the Sodnos, and fell without a groan. Then they went back to worry the reindeer, and the noise became as great as ever, and a second time the Stalo awoke. "The boy does not seem to be able to part the beasts," he cried to his second brother. "Go and help him, or I shall never get to sleep." So the brother went, and in an instant was struck dead as he left the house by the sword of the eldest Sodno. The Stalo waited in bed a little longer for things to get quiet, but as the clatter of the reindeer's horns was as bad as ever, he rose angrily from his bed muttering to himself, "It is extraordinary that they cannot unlock themselves, but as no one else seems able to help them, I suppose I must go and do it." Rubbing his eyes, he stood up on the floor and stretched his great arms and gave a yawn which shook the walls. The Sodnos heard it below, and posted themselves, one at the big door and one at the little door at the back, for they did not know what their enemy would come out at. The Stalo put out his hand to take his iron mantle from the bed, where it always lay, but the mantle was no there. He wondered where it could be, and who could have moved it, and after searching through all the rooms, he found it hanging over the kitchen fire. But the first touch burned him so badly that he let it alone, and went with nothing, except a stick in his hand, through the back door. The young Sodno was standing ready for him, and as the Stalo passed the threshold struck him such a blow on the head that he rolled over with a crash and never stirred again. The 2 Sodnos did not trouble about him, but quickly stripped the younger Stalos of their clothes, in which they dressed themselves. Then they sat still till the dawn should break and they could find out from the Stalo's mother where the treasure was hidden. With the first rays of the sun the young Sodno went upstairs and entered the old woman's room. She was already up and dressed, and sitting by the window knitting, and the young man crept in softly and crouched down on the floor, laying his head on her lap. For a while he kept silence, Then he whispered gently. Tell me, dear mother, where did my eldest brother conceal his riches? What a strange question. Surely you must know, answered she. No, I have forgotten. My memory is so bad. He dug a hole under the doorstep and placed it there, said she. And there was another pause. By and by the Sodno asked again. And where may my second brother's money be? Don't you know that either? Cried the mother in surprise. Oh, yes, I did once. But since I fell upon my head I can remember nothing. It is behind the oven, answered she. And again was silence. Mother, dear mother, said the young man at last, I am almost afraid to ask you. But I really have grown so stupid of late. Where did I hide my own money? But at this question the old woman flew into a passion, and vowed that if she could find a rod she would bring his memory back to him. Luckily, no rod was within her reach, and the Sodno managed, after a little, to coax her back into good humor, and at length she told him that the youngest Stalo had buried his treasure under the very place where she was sitting. Dear mother, said Lyman, who had come in unseen, and was kneeling in front of the fire. Dear mother, do you know who it is you have been talking with? The old woman started, but answered quietly. It is a Sodno, I suppose? You have guessed right, replied Lima. The mother of the Stalos looked round for her iron cane, which she always used to kill her victims, but it was not there, for Lima had put it in the fire. Where is my iron cane? Asked the old woman. There, answered Lima, pointing to the flames. The old woman sprang forwards and seized it, but her clothes caught fire, and in a few minutes she was burned to ashes. So the Sodno brothers found the treasure, and they carried it, and their sister and the reindeer, to their own home, and were the richest men in all Lapland.
This AI playback is powered by Crone.
Let's explore a figure from Sámi mythology. Jaitsilhai.
Right. According to Wikipedia, this being is associated with water, specifically lakes and rivers.
So, what role did Tatsiomai have for the Sámi people?
Well, Taitiomai was believed to control these waters and to grant fishing fortune to people.
The name itself is quite interesting. What does it signify?
The article mentions that Chache means water. Supposedly, it's connected to the Norse Jotun Chetsi.
Ah, a cross-cultural connection then. Anything else we should know?
The entry notes that further information could be added. It's just a brief overview of this deity.